during the retreat that we hosted in Tiruvannamalai last month, I found myself saying to the group at one point, try to give yourselves and each other space to be different now than you were yesterday, or the way you were when you woke up this morning, because we're going through all these transformational experiences, and it's easy to just kind of lock back into, this is who I am, this is who I'm expected to be, this is the role that I play. And without getting obsessed in the other direction or self-critical about not being different, there's a way that we can give ourselves permission to be new. And I say that in the context of this teacher training also. You all are also going through transformational experiences, both within this training and within your lives. And we haven't seen each other in 2 months. And I accept and expect that you are not the same person that you were 2 months ago when I last saw you. And I think it would do us all good to give us ourselves, and especially each other, some space to be new, to be unknown to ourselves, and to be unknown to each other. If we always know who we are, if we always have a fixed idea about who we are and what our relationships are, then there's a limitation there that we're imposing on ourselves. So, welcome to the new, and to this new day of teacher training and this iterative, expansive journey that we're on together. And in the context of the yoga philosophy, we started with the evolution of consciousness and the idea that consciousness, that the divine is evolving consciousness. The divine is eternal being that never changes, and the divine decided as the eternal being with infinite possibilities to become a non-eternal being with limited possibilities. That was one of the possibilities that it chose, was to be limited. One of the limitless options was limitation, and limitation growing in a direction of wholeness and limitlessness. Absolute limitation or intense limitation, expanding ever, the horizon ever increasing towards limitlessness. Individuality expanding into integration and connection, and isolation, separateness expanding into wholeness. And so that's happening on Earth. The whole Earth, in the context of the cosmos, is a place of evolution and expansion, place of growth and transformation. And we're all involved in that and part of that. And there are forces that support evolution and forces that obstruct evolution. And in the Vedic context, they're characterized as the Vedas, the Devas, and the Asuras. The Devas are the beings of light, the radiant ones that reveal truth and show the way towards wholeness and truth. And the Asuras are the ones that obstruct and cloud and confuse and cover and create shadows. And both are playing their part. You can't have evolution without both forces. Otherwise, it would just be over. There has to be something resisting in order for it to play out within time. And on an individual and collective level, because we are one, because we are unchanging and permanent and unharmable and eternal, we are that purity that exists beyond time. What the way that the growth towards wholeness can be characterized is through a process of purification. And different yoga traditions use that word in different ways. In the tantric tradition, it's basically understood in the Shiva Tantra tradition, the Kashmir Shaiva Tantra tradition. we each are the radiant eternal light of Shiva, and there's obscurities that cloud our awareness of that, and that's the cause of all suffering. And liberation is when we release these impurities, when we purify, when we become our pure radiant light that we are. Our consciousness becomes identified eternally with that, and it doesn't waver from that. That's absolute liberation. And that can happen when we're living in a body, when we're, it can happen outside of embodiment, but that's the process that all of us is generally in, and yoga is basically a speeding up of that process, like intensification and speeding up of the process of purification that will take place anyway, that is taking place anyway on the earth for all beings, in individuals, in collectives, and in the big way collectively. So that's kind of a summary of what we've talked about so far. And today, the specific topic that I want to focus in on is sacrifice, which is, in the context of the Veda, the word is Yajña. It's spelled Y-A-J-N-Y-A, Yajña. And you'll sometimes hear it pronounced Yajña, because Yajña is hard for us to pronounce with our non-Sanskrit tongues. But, it's basically, it's a characteristic term or a characteristic concept or reality of it. It really points right to the heart of the split within the yoga tradition between ritualism and formulaity and inner freedom or inner exploration, or like societal, the reification of societal norms within the yoga tradition, the desire for a society to pull together and support itself and support each other, and then the pulling away of the individualism. This pulse, this is a big part of human evolution, the pulse between the collective and the individual, us and me. So we humans have always had this, we need each other to survive. We need each other. You can't just have one human out there on the tundra. It's not going to work. I mean, now people have invented stuff that makes it somewhat possible for a period of time, but in order for the human race to evolve, there needs to be more than one, we can say, in order for the human race to continue. So this tension between the collective, which in order for the collective to exist, the individuals need to agree on some stuff. There need to be some rules. There need to be some collective agreements that allow the society to function. And yet we have in us embedded this resistance to rules and this inclination to individuate and to want to be free, to express ourselves, to be ourselves, to bring our uniqueness into being. We have this natural, organic embeddedness of wanting to be and express the unique. Each one of us is absolutely unique, I mean, just imagine, that's impossible, by the way, that there could be billions and billions of people and we're all unique all through time. It's impossible, and yet that's how it is. And each of us is a unique, not just embodiment, the unique fingerprint, but a unique soul imprint coming through a body. And we have that inclination and desire to express that beauty, that incredible, sweet song that is our unique gift to the world. And we have to be together somehow. We have to, and increasingly, this is part of the evolution of consciousness, is this pressure that's created by the increasing reality that we have to work out big problems together. Like all of our problems are in some ways increasingly intertwined with the rest of the entire world. So this tension between individuality and the collective is part of our experience. And the pulsing between those two is part of the evolution of societies. Societies will tend to swing in the direction of rigidification, authoritarianism, and then there's a push towards individualism. And authoritarianism and individualism are constantly in this dance with each other. And in that context, sacrifice, the yajña, it exists in both spaces. So in the collective, what I have talked about before, the way that the Vedas themselves, the hymns of the Vedas, became kind of calcified into these mantras that need to be recited in a specific formula, in a specific way, in a specific ritual by a specific person at a specific time of day, with specific things going, specific material elements. Everything becomes very formulaic, and that whole system is understood to be required, number one, in order to keep the earth spinning and life going on, but also if I want something, then I do this ritual and I might get it. If I want a child, if I want money, if I want success in business, if I want a good life, then the ritual becomes part of what I get. And there's a social element to the ritualism. It reifies the structures of society, and you can look specifically at the caste system in Indian society and the Brahmin caste as being the priests who are the ones capable of holding this tradition, and nobody else can do it. This is not entirely true today, but historically in the past, it has been understood to be true that the Brahmin caste was the only ones who were able to learn the rituals, recite the rituals, hold that tradition. So society agreed to that as a pact. And so there was this kind of reification of social structures that was embedded in this ritual, and the ritual itself is the yajña. So the yajña, the sacrifice, is it's an embodied ritual that was done only by certain people, or was understood to be possible to be done only by certain people at certain times, etc. It's a fire ceremony. And the basics of it are that items, valuable things, food, ghee, sugar, water, fuel, different herbs, are offered into the fire. And mantras are chanted and like that. This is kind of the formula of the yajña. And so as that formula and as the kind of social cohesive structure at the center of this Brahminical form of Indian spirituality, it represents that, agreement of society. We all agree that this ritual is important and it can only be done by these people, and it's basically what keeps this whole thing going. And at the same time, like I said, the individual might want a new car or a wife or a husband or a child or success. And so they might participate in a ritual to get what they want, right? So there's a kind of trying to game the system to get what they want. And these two things feed on each other, the reification of social structures and the understood gratification of individual desires are both part of this traditional structure of the yajña. Now, outside of that structure is the teaching or the offering of the yajña. One of the last book, the 10th book of the Rig Veda, has a verse called the Purusha Suktam. And in the Purusha Suktam, it's basically said that the one being that is the entire universe, the divine being that is greater than anything, the one whom 3/4 of itself is outside of creation, and 1/4 of itself manifests as every manifest thing in the universe. So every manifest thing that has ever existed in the universe is 1/4 of this being. That's how great this being is. The other 3/4 are so great you can't even imagine it. That in the Purusha Suktam, that being offers itself as a sacrifice to the fire, to Agni, to the divine fire. And out of that sacrifice comes all things. All wisdom, the earth is born out of it, the seasons are born out of it, the directions are born out of it, everything comes. So there's this assertion that everything comes from sacrifice, and that even the divine being, the divine one, is involved in that sacrifice. Everything results from sacrifice. And this, I would say, is the kind of core teaching behind the ritual, that's kind of hiding behind that ritualism, is that everything comes from sacrifice. And sacrifice, we can often associate with like losing something that we want or giving up something that we wish we could have. But really, sacrifice is love. And you think about when you love someone, you make their needs greater than your own. It's natural to do when you really love someone. It's not like you have to force yourself to do it. And of course, our relationship with love is not simple. We have love mixed with need, mixed with want, mixed with desire, mixed with frustration, mixed with resentment. Love gets all mixed up, and then we call it love. We call the whole package love. But it's all these other things mixed up with each other. So if we could just tease out love, which is the fabric that holds the universe together, which is the magnet that draws us towards each other, that draws evolution along towards wholeness, which is the organic and natural relationship of a part to its whole, the whole of which it's a part. That love that has no ulterior motive, no secondary need, no, it's just pure, and it just is an offering. That love, in the state of that love, we make the other, the priorities of the other, higher than our own. And that other might be one other person, it might be an animal, it might be a forest, it might be a country, it might be the earth. We elevate those priorities above our own. That is sacrifice. We have sacrificed our own priorities for the sake of, in the name of, whatever that other that we love is. And you think about that in your own life. So do you get nothing from that? Is that a purely one-sided thing where you just give everything and you end up with nothing? Why would we live like that? When we love and we offer, we receive so much. I mean, the fulfillment, the joy, the experience of being in love. And this is why Hollywood makes such a big deal out of it. And Hollywood twists it a little bit. But the point is that it's an amazing experience to be in love, whether it's with a tree or a forest or a person or a cat. And so being in love naturally involves sacrifice, and it's an amazing experience. It's not an experience of loss. We're not like, oh, I'm so sorry. I fell in love. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry that you have prioritized someone else's needs above your own. I'm sorry that you have found something that you feel adoration and reverence and reverence for and want to worship and serve. So no, we acknowledge that it's an amazing, beautiful, wonderful, joyful experience, and sacrifice is right in the center of it. And so this is the nature of the Vedic sacrifice. That's why the Purusha sacrifices itself in order to create the universe out of love. And that's why Krishna in the Bhagavad Gītā incarnates over and over again from age to age. The sacrifice of the divine one to embody. That's why Ram embodies as a human. And that's why you left your state of absolute eternal clarity and unharmability to come into this body that hurts and changes and is vulnerable, and come into relationships that are messy and confusing, and signals and messages that are contradictory, and needs that are not met. That's why you left your state of wholeness to come here. It was out of love. And that was a sacrifice. And on a spiritual level, all of us are here as a result of a sacrifice. And the earth exists as a sacrifice. The earth offers herself unconditionally all the time, every moment. She is an offering. She is in a state of eternal offering. And so that sacrifice is there. And in that way, the form of the yajña, that the Vedic ritual, offering to the fire consumes the offering, the smoke goes up to the heavens, and then the rain comes down, right? This cycle of gathering, offering, the offering rising up, and the rain coming down in the form of actual rain, in the form of blessing, in the form of grace. Shaktipat literally means the descent of Shakti. This circular relationship, this is what that Vedic yajna ritual represents and embodies. That we are in relationship at all times with our ecosystem, with the cosmos, with everything around us. And when we make an offering, when we give something important, when we release what we need, what we feel is most important, what we are attached to, when we let it go, the rain comes, the blessing comes, the unexpected comes. We open ourselves to receive something bigger than what we thought we needed. And in the context of yoga, the individual, the inclination towards individuality that is called ahankara, the I maker, the ego, we say in modern terms. And in the yoga tradition, of course, we have to remember that the word ego didn't have all the Freudian overlays that it has now, right? So it's just the force of gravity that coalesces us into an individual. It makes me a me, and you a you, and that a that, and this a this. It's just that. It's like a force of consciousness that creates the sense of separation that differentiates me from you. That ahankara, when it is formed, it creates a sense of competition. And I need to get what I need, and it, if that's at your expense, then that's too bad. And here we come again into this tension between the individual and the society. The society is always trying to compensate for the ego's need to protect itself and compete against others. So many structures of society exist to create bonds of trust so that we can just, so that we know that we're not just going to eat each other. That the ego isn't just going to get out of control and just grab what it needs. I'm not just going to go into your house and take your stuff, even though I might feel like I need to do that. So this tension, again, between the individual and the society manifests as the ego creates the individual need, and the society compensates for that, individual need. And that cycle works until the individual feels stifled by it, until the society starts to say, no, you need to do what we say. You can't think like that. You can't dress like that. You can't be like that. You can't, talk about those sorts of things. You can't believe those sorts of things. So this is when the society goes too far and starts to stifle the individual, and then the individual pushes back and says, no, I am me. You can't tell me can't tell me not to be me. That's not how it works. I am myself. I was born this way, and I have a purpose to express my individuality in this world at this time, and I'm going to do it. So right at the interface of that, right at the tension point of that, is this sacrifice. Because the way that we come together is through the individual, the ego, sacrificing its perceived needs to the higher reality. When I let go of my ego's sense of I, me, mine, possessiveness, competition, need to dominate, and align with my deeper being and what my deeper being knows to be true as far as my needs and my need to express, my need to be myself, then there's a harmonization, because we were all created out of the same stuff, and we were all created for the same purpose, to come and sing our unique song. And when I am able to align myself with that for myself, there's a natural willingness and openness for everyone else to align that way. And because we were created as a harmony, when we actually do sing our actual true, unique, individual song, it harmonizes. It's not a dissonance. There's no conflict. There's no, you know, I need this and you need that too, and there's only one of them. That disappears. So the capacity for creating a holistic society comes through each of us sacrificing the perceived needs of the separated ego that experiences itself as cut off from everyone, to the higher needs of the soul that is not cut off from anything, that is in a state of unity and harmony with all of creation. This is the underlying teaching of the sacrifice. And in the Bhagavad Gītā, Krishna characterizes it specifically as, I mean, first of all, he uses the metaphor of the Vedic Yajña, and he says, Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir Brahmagnau Brahmanahutam Brahmaivatena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. He's saying, Brahmarpanam, Brahman, the divine substance, Brahman, the stuff that is the body of the divine one, the substrata of all creation, Brahman, is the offering, that which is put in the fire. Brahmahavir, Brahman is the ladle, the thing that is used to make the offering. Brahmagnau, Brahman is the fire itself. Brahmanahutam, Brahman is the one who's making the offering. So he's using this exact metaphor. He's saying in this Vedic ritual, when there's the thing that's put into the fire, and there's the thing that's used to put the thing into the fire, and there's the hand that of the person that puts the thing into the fire, and there's the fire itself, all of it is Brahman. All of it is the divine. It's not like some of it is and some of it isn't, and the fire is and this isn't and that. It's all of it is. And then he says that the sacrifice is the sacrifice of attachment to what we, to the fruits of our actions. That's the word that he uses, phalam, fruit. So every action has a fruit, and we go around thinking that we deserve the fruits that we're creating. If I do some work, I want to get paid for it. Or if I, give you something, I want something back. Or, I earned it. Think about earning things. And it's a natural human, very integrated into our consciousness. What am I going to get out of this? Krishna says nothing. You're not going to get anything out of it. Let it completely let it go. The attachment to the fruits of you are not entitled to be attached to the fruits of your actions. offer everything to the divine. Everything that you do, offer to the divine, and ask nothing in return. That's basically the central teaching of the Bhagavad Gītā. And this is coming in the context of, the divine is this Vedic ritual. And so the sacrifice, all aspects of it are the divine. And when you enter into that sacrifice, when you make your whole life infused with that sacrifice, your whole life infused with self-offering, with giving, acting, being in the world for the sake of the divine only, to serve the divine only, and not to get anything back. I mean, it's very strong, the Bhagavad Gītā in that sense. You are not entitled to the fruits. He's not like, sometimes you're not entitled to the fruits of your actions. Sometimes you should really not be so attached to the fruits. He's like, no, you are not ever entitled to the fruits of any actions. And he's not saying this like, you bad Arjuna. He's like, come on, if you realize this, you will be so completely liberated that you will never suffer. That's the offering. If you realize this and embody this, you will be completely liberated from all suffering. And you will be completely with me. You will be mine. You will be next to me, in me, with me at all times. You will never leave me. I mean, this is Krishna speaking. Krishna, who has identified himself as the Purushottama, the absolute Purusha, the absolute divine that is the divine of the divine of the divine, the central grandest being in the entire cosmos. He's identified himself as that, and he says, you will be ever with me. I will never take my eyes off of you. You'll never depart from me. If you realize this, if you embody this, not to be attached to the idea that you deserve the fruits of your actions. That's Krishna's interpretation or assertion of the root of the Vedic sacrifice. I've mentioned before that Agni is the central character of the Rig Veda, the one who's spoken about the most. The first verse of the Rig Veda, Agni mi ile purohitam, is about Agni. There's more hymns to Agni than any other deva in the Rig Veda. And this is central. It's the center of the sacrifice. This kind of sacrifice requires humility, requires surrender, and we live in a world that values empowerment more than it values sacrifice and surrender. And so it's kind of an upstream, for those who take the path of sacrifice and surrender, it's upstream when it comes to the messages that we get from society. Krishna also says that the four texts, or the texts of the Veda, the four Vedas, and the rituals associated with them are like a small well of water compared to the vast lake of absolute truth that's around us all the time. So he talks about the Vedas in different ways, and even says, like, he is the Vedas. Of the Veda, he is the Rig Veda. And he says, I alone am to be known by all the Vedas. I'm the author of the Vedas. I'm the knower of the Vedas. So he's saying the Vedas, the wisdom of the Veda, he is the author of it. He is known through it. He's praising the Veda, and then he says, like, yeah, but this Vedic ritualism, why would you go chase after this small well of water when there's a whole lake here? Like, you don't really need that. There's nothing, you're not going to get anything from that. The lake is just around you. You're living in the middle of a lake. And you have the right to perform your prescribed duties, but you're not entitled to the fruits of your actions. That's the secret that lives in the lake, that is characterized by the lake. Never consider yourself to be the cause of the results of your actions. Never consider yourself. So not only are you not entitled to the fruits of your actions, but you didn't cause them anyway. So just leave it alone. Never consider yourself to be the cause of the results of your actions. He also says some yogis worship the devas through the yajña ritual, right? So the yajña is generally a formula for worshiping the different devas. And there's not just one yajña. It's basically a framework, and there's all kinds of different ways of engaging with it. Others offer the self as a sacrifice in the fire of Brahman. So he's saying some yogis, partake in this ritual and make offerings to the devas, and others offer the self as a sacrifice in the fire of Brahman. This is the opportunity. It doesn't sound like such a glamorous opportunity to offer the self as a sacrifice in the fire of Brahman, because the self doesn't like to be offered as a sacrifice. I mean, when he's talking about the self, it's like everything that we perceive ourselves to be. Everything that you think you are, your personality, your likes, your dislikes, your preferences, your relationships, your kind of self-definition, your experience of continuity through time, all of it. What is it like to offer that as a sacrifice in the fire of Brahman? The fire of Brahman, the fire of divine being. It's not something that you can really talk about conceptually. The joy that comes from allowing the fire of divine being to consume the sense of individuality is not something that can be extrapolated. You can't theorize about it. You can't, it's not possible to imagine it if you haven't experienced it. And so it's hard to go from the state of not knowing to the state of knowing, because there's a leap of faith required. Until you've had the experience, then, it's a leap of faith. You can take Krishna's word for it, though. That's one of the ways of knowing things that's promoted in the yoga tradition, is listening to the testimony of a knowledgeable person. So you can consider Krishna a knowledgeable person and listen to his testimony. Or any knowledgeable person who has had the experience. Ramakrishna used to say, you can't describe the experience of tasting a mango. Tell me what a mango tastes like. And you can't. If you can tell me all day, and I'll never experience it until I taste it. It's like that with the experience of immersing in the fire of Brahman. But once the mango has been tasted, then it becomes increasingly difficult to value other things above that experience, because it's so absolutely incredible. We can forget and we can become distracted, but the experience can't be erased. Those who know the secret of sacrifice, this is from Bhagavad Gītā, those who know the secret of sacrifice and engaging in it partake of its remnants. So those who know the secret of sacrifice and partake of it, like drink in the juice of it, partake of its remnants, breathe in the smoke of it, partake of its remnants that are like nectar, its nectarous remnants, advance toward the absolute truth. So the secret, I mean, he's acknowledging there with the word secret, the secret of sacrifice, but there is a secret hidden there, you know, amid the ritualism. And engaging in it, partake of its remnants that are like nectar. This is not my translation. Advance toward the absolute truth. And those who perform no sacrifice find no happiness, either in this world or in the next. So I think that's a good place for me to stop. And just see how you all are doing. And I hope that you're finding a integration with all of the different aspects of yoga teachings that we've been exploring, because the idea is that they're building on each other and they're going from kind of out here to a little bit closer, maybe a little bit more relevant and practical to an embodied life.